Good morning. This morning we are going to touch upon some syndromes, a medical kind of psycho bio neuro type of subject known as syndromes. Syndromes, the definition of syndrome is something that we or doctor cannot understand. There are symptoms. Doctor tries to understand the symptoms, but symptoms cannot be very clear or matching with all the previous symptoms of all the known maladies. These syndromes or symptoms are absolutely unfathomable. Doctors cannot actually compare them with any other symptoms, and as such they call them syndrome. I have actually made the list of some syndromes, and I'm going to elaborate one syndrome at a time. When we suffer from something that doctor just try, doctor just experiment on us, doctor just cannot understand, like the first few cases of AIDS or Ebola or SARS or COVID, Corona. First few cases the doctor could not understand, so they actually drew their culture and experimented the culture, and then they found out that this is the new variant of Corona, and the United Nations gave the name COVID. When totally new, holistic type of malady emerges, that can be called syndrome because there is no medicine available, there is no knowledge available, there is no backup available, there is no understanding or books available, no knowledge or no material available. That is what happened in the case of COVID. We have to start afresh every single thing, learning about COVID and learning how the COVID spreads and how the COVID kills and where COVID attack on us and what are the medicines or vaccines of COVID. And we started working on the vaccines, and we found the vaccine, and now COVID is gone by the grace of God. So now, first is Locomotive Syndrome. You must have seen, in our everyday life we see every day that some very old people cannot walk properly. Even with cane, they stick their hand but they cannot walk properly. That kind of syndromes are known as locomotive syndrome, in which we cannot walk properly. Our gait, our walking actually becomes distorted. We cannot actually walk the way younger people walk with some kind of rhythm. Our rhythm is gone. Our charm of gait is gone. We cannot actually walk properly, and that is known as locomotive syndrome. Carpal tunnel syndrome. Carpal tunnel syndrome is suffered by those people who work on the keyboard all the time. There was a time about 25, 30 years ago when the typewriters were used. And those typists who were using typewriters all day long in the office or their own personal business, typing the papers and all those sort of things, and the clerk in the bank, they all suffer from this carpal tunnel syndrome, in which their fingers, their bones of the finger would actually give them excruciating pain. Their fingers become almost unable to move, and the pain was so severe that they cannot eventually move their fingers. Number 3 is PMS. It is for women, premenstrual syndrome. Couple of days before the menstrual time, lots of ladies suffer from abdominal pain in their lower stomach. They suffer for a couple of days in advance of this cycle, and during the menstrual cycle, they suffer it, and after the menstrual cycle is over, they end. That is also syndrome. Doctor could not understand why this happened. Even most of the doctors don't understand this thing happened, but the medicine is available. It just relieves the patient from the pain. It doesn't cure. SARS, severely acute respiratory syndrome. This actually melody is zoonotic melodies, and mostly you find them in Arab nations where the people keep camels and tend camels and travel on camel. They come in touch with the camel, and this camel suffers from the SARS. And the camel actually transmit this SARS to human, in which human cannot breathe. Severely acute respiratory syndrome. Respiration, our breathing in and breathing out, our inhaling and exhaling is totally impaired. Next is China syndrome. It was around 1979 when there was a nuclear accident in the nuclear reactor in China. That was the first accident. Nobody really understood what happened and what are the radiation and how far the radiation will go and how many people will be impacted and how it will stop and what would be its repercussions, long-term and short-term consequences. All sorts of things that they were trying to understand. That is why they named it China syndrome, because they could not understand that how to contain the spread of this radiation, how many people would die, how many people would suffer long-term damage to their DNA, and what would be the final consequences and the final ramification of this accident. They did not understand any melody, any condition, any affliction. Doctor doesn't understand, it gives the name syndrome. Next is Penetrial Syndrome. Penetrial. Penetrial was the name of the boy. His mother told him that if you lie, your nose is going to grow. Every time you lie, every time your nose is going to grow little bit, little bit, little bit, and if you don't stop lying, your nose is going to grow 1 full foot. So every time Penetrial lied, he touched his nose to make sure that it has grown, and from that, actually this Penetrial syndrome came about, that when we lie, why do we lie? What are the impact of lying? What makes us lie? This is the kind of condition the doctors try to understand. That's why they gave it a name. Penetrial syndrome means those people who lie without rhyme or reason. They lie all day long out of their teeth. They are pathological liars. They have disease of lying. And why is that? I don't know. Doctor is going to say, I don't know, it is syndrome. Peter Pan syndrome. Peter Pan was a kind of person who would always live in suit and boot. He would always look young. He would always color his hair and color his mustache and color every single thing and go for the cosmetic surgeries, and he does every single thing to look good. So those people, even in the older age, they try to look good. They suffer from Peter Pan syndrome. And why that syndrome strikes or occurs, and what does it do, and where it occurs, and what kind of damage does it make, nobody knows. So it is syndrome. Hydro syndrome. Lots of people are there who suffer from water. Nobody knows why. Some people actually love water. They plunge into water and they swim and they dive, and they dive deeper in the water and they go into the deeper, and they actually have heavenly time. And other people just stay as far away from the water. Ask doctor says, I don't know, it is psychological syndrome that you are afraid of water. Hydro means water. These are only the syndrome. No, I should rephrase myself. These are the syndrome that we can discuss whatever the time we have. There are number of syndrome. Claustrophobia syndrome is there. The syndrome animal, if you are afraid of animal and the darkness and the close place and height and all kinds of syndromes are there. But next time we are going to cover some more syndrome. So thank you very much for listening. God bless everyone on this planet. Amen.